I've accidentally done it again. The call of action I included was too strong, so here we are starting yet another playthrough, but this time attempting to survive 100 days on the Deadliest asteroid in the Spaced Out DLC. In my previous series, I started on Asteroid that all but guaranteed the success and survival of my colony, even with me as the incompetent leader. Needless to say, I learned a lot of what not to do. So why not try to make a radioactive ocean asteroid our new home? I have no idea how radiation works in the DLC, nor what's considered an ocean. Regardless, let's take our slim chances of survival and pretend we know what we're doing. To start our journey, we must begin at the ending of our last series. To beat the game, we had to send a dupe to the Temporal to find a new universe to call home. We ultimately decided to send the goat of all dupes, Rowan. But I really liked Rowan, so I made a duplicate Rowan that we could send in his place. That duplicate we can call Rowan 2. He went through the tear in hopes of a better future, and that brings us here today. To start off our journey, I have selected our crew of 3 dupes. Starting with Rowan 2 from our other colony. He was yeeted mercilessly into the temporal tear, and he ended up here being the leader of this crew as the lead pilot to travel between the planets, followed by Mima, our excavator and constructor, to accompany him from planet to planet, and Lyra, our husbandry and science expert, to hold down the fort at the main asteroid. With this fine set of dupes, let's name the colony the Radioactive Paradise and get started. The only rule I have set for this playthrough is no save scumming. So if something goes wrong, like a dupe drowning in the water reservoir, I can't load an earlier save to right the situation. So let's see what we are working with. We have water down here right below our portal, so dupes could accidentally use that as a restroom, so we're going to try to prevent that. Polluted water down there. A pip, which we could use as a food source. Looks like we have some hexalent, which is that food. Can be harvested as single calorie dense food serving. We got mealwood as food. For the pips, we can get the arbor trees to feed them and ranch them. And looking around, it looks like there's more or less those plants a laboratory up here. We'll have to dig into and see what those are. Looks like we have a teleporter and a robotic research desk. So now, as for survival, we kind of want to focus on oxygen first and our food supply. So I'm going to get the dupes working on digging out the area that we're starting in, while also not trying to get rid of the oxalite because that is providing us oxygen right now, which blue is good, red is bad. We're going to try to keep that in check. So we have a little bit of a grace period to get oxygen up and running. And something else we'll want to take care of is getting an outpost for the dupes to use the restroom. So I think 2 should be more than enough. And since I don't want them to use the water source as a restroom, I'm going to try to build a ladder down here, build over, and then tap it there so that they have to go up in order to get into it. Because right now, if I were to just do ladder down, these restrooms could flow directly into there. Oh, looks like we do have hatches on this planet. I was concerned about our food supply because pips aren't really optimal for food, but it does look like we can obtain hatches, so building a stable will be in our near future. Cleared out this area nicely. Outhouses are built, have dirt added to them so they can use them, and we're about to breach our water area. So as a added safety, since I'm not believing in saves coming this time, I'm going to just add a ladder so if they do fall in there, they can climb out. I probably should have also built a microbe musher. We do also need to provide power, which will just be a manual wheel for now, and we have aluminum so we can power that. I think there's a little bit of a grace period with rations. We got nutrient bars, 20 kilograms of it. So it looks like Rowan just took out 2 kilograms of food. Meemaw took out 1. I guess it depends on the dupe how much to take out. So we might have 4 days worth of rations. I think we should be able to reach these and have them harvested automatically. I'm just going to dig up there, set these guys to auto harvest along with the mealwood, because those will give us some sort of food, which is better than none. That brings us to day 2, where the goal was expansion, and the direction was up if we weren't blocked by a few nodes of oxalite keeping us alive. Since we couldn't mine them, that brought our attention to optimizing our early stage power network by installing a battery with a hamster wheel so we could store power, allowing the dupes to do other tasks. As for our food supply, excellent fruit was not a permanent solution since it was a single harvest item, but it did provide a lot of calories. That meant our solution would instead be delicious mush bars made from the cleanest of dirt and still water. Delicious. The only downside is dirt can be a finite resource if mismanaged. The next advancements were a basic research station for research and an oxygen diffuser to make oxygen if we fed it algae. Only question was if there was algae on this planet to begin with, since I saw absolutely none of it. Beds were added for the dupe's comfort, only halted by yet another oxide patch in the way, and the top part of the base was mined out, giving us space for further expansion. The second night snuck up on us, though, leaving the dupes to sleep on the floor. Beginning of day 3, I discovered the overpowered oxyfern, which took the carbon dioxide from my dupes and made oxygen, which on a planet with no algae to make oxygen is extremely huge. This sparked an idea to channel all the carbon dioxide in my colony to these 2 lone oxyfern at the bottom of my starting biome. Just to sanity check though, I did one final scan to ensure there was no algae, and all I found was the vacuum of space. We'll pretend that isn't there though. I knew the oxyfern wouldn't be enough to solve our oxygen issues, so I set my sight on researching the electrolyzer for a permanent oxygen producing solution. With carbon dioxide building at the bottom of the base, we had to act and start the carbon deletion shaft. I also made plans to connect the base to more mealwood plant food sources. The printing pod was also ready to give us a gift. In hopes that our food supply would hold, I sized up the dupes and ultimately chose P to act as a builder and machine operator. I also figured Ron would appreciate having his girlfriend back, so that also affected my decision. Our first research was finished thanks to Lyra, which gave us access to plumbing. So I started laying some pipe for the electrolyzer. With all that progress, my dupes ate their dinner, consuming about 1,000 calories per dupe, and headed to bed. Day 4, we started by instilling a sense of dread. Dark blue oxygen means we are running out. To pretend this was not an issue, I distracted myself by some naturally spawning supply teleporters. Why are these here? Where do they teleport to? If to each other, that is a very short distance. That's like writing a letter and mailing it to yourself. Just why? The food tunnels were worked on, trying to connect 3 mealwood plants ready for harvest with their sumptuous lice. What goes better with lice than a nice side of radiation? Still don't know how deadly it is, but shine nymphs output it, so they may be relocated off the planet. Thank you Oxalite Node for moving so I can build my ladder, but now that means there is no oxygen production. That is not good. But not if I have nothing to say about it though. We were toiled through non-OSHA safe work conditions and we breached the oxyferns, allowing the carbon to flow down there, although slow since it was an arrowless straw, so we planned to make it wider and the oxyferns started producing. The mealwood plants we dug to were harvested, allowing us to make lice loaf. Yay, my dupes get a semi-upgrade from eating dirt. Then the electrolyzer research finished, so I queued up the food-related research path to unlock stables for a more reliable and endgame food source, hatches. From there, I promptly put an electrolyzer down to start our own oxygen production using our limited water supply. That brought us to the end of the day where food went down even more. To temporarily solve the problem, I queued up more excellent fruit harvest, and dirt was back on the table. Eat up, everyone. With food on the mind, I started eyeing up the hatch. Once we got stables, our food issues would be solved. Slight oversight though. In order to capture a hatch, you need a dupe with the skill of ranching. I planned on Lyra being the dupe, but with her more important job of researching items quickly, there was no way she could do both jobs. So we needed to get a dupe from the printing pod that was skilled in ranching. In the meantime, even more excellent fruit was harvested. The oxyferns were putting in the work making oxygen from our carbon dioxide, but not nearly fast enough since the game thought it needed to tell me we were failing at oxygen production rates. With that slight kick in action, I gave up all hope on finding algae for the oxygen diffuser and moved the electrolyzer to its centralized location instead for better oxygen dispersal. To finish off the day, Meemaw went Super Saiyan in her sleep. On day 6, the focus was still food. Luckily, there were 3 excellent fruit plants to the north I could harvest, bumping our calorie count all the way up to 50,000 calories, enough to last us 12 days at our current dupe count of 4. We also stumbled upon the line of neutronium blocks, meaning there was a geyser we could uncover in the top left corner of the base. The electrolyzer kicked into action, starting to pump out oxygen and hydrogen. I wasn't a fan of the hydrogen bubbles floating up to the ceiling, but we needed oxygen, and this was literally the only way. Luther and Rowan gained some skill points, so I made Luther faster at research errands, which was a smart choice, while I taught Rowan how to pilot a rocket. This was a dumb idea. I don't even have a rocket to fly, so how does this even help me? Fun fact, it doesn't. The research was also halted because I didn't have the means to produce advanced research, so that was our next research goal, only 2 stages away. Then the printing pod presented its next trade offer, where naturally a snazzy sweater was more valuable than all the dupes combined. I mean, it gave Rowan some sick drip, and he actively helped the decor of the base to increase morale, because the unsettling rapid growth of hydrogen levels in the base was not helping. Ignoring the hydrogen on day 7, I was able to build the advanced research station, which only required water to run. I also hid the electrical cables in the walls, because apparently having exposed wires in your house is bad decor. The plans for a permanent hydrogen solution started to take shape, which we needed sooner rather than later, but that was a problem for day 8, where we had our first incident. Oh no, and Meemaw is gonna trap herself up there, isn't she? Of course you are. Oh, and I just let all the hydrogen out. That was quite a big oversight, because that means these plants are gonna stop growing. If we could prioritize Meemaw getting down from there, that'd be amazing. How about if I put these 2 priority 8s? And I leave those as a 9. Oh, Meemaw could have just got herself out there. Come on, Meemaw, you're better than this. With Meemaw freed, progress could continue by running a water pipe to the relocated electrolyzer and freeing the pip that has been trapped for the last week, while also keeping the polluted oxygen pool contained. In doing so, we made a groundbreaking discovery in regards to the pip. Oh my god, what is up with that guy? Oh, he's planting a seed. At least that's what I think he's doing. That is awesome, because I see this as a potential to spread mealwood seeds so that they grow naturally without any of my input, so just even more food. Which is important because we can't wrangle the hatches yet, and the next best thing is farming plots for mealwood plants that require dirt to grow, which in terms of the 4,000 calories we need per day is not nearly fast enough at the moment. Just like our oxygen production, which it looks like the carbon dioxide is being managed while our oxygen production is lacking, as seen by the dark blue areas. This was because the electrolyzer was overpressured, meaning the area it made oxygen in had too much oxygen, and it wasn't able to transfer to the rest of the base. So I installed ladders to let the gases pass through the layers, being interrupted by the printing pod, which came with a shipment of able-bodied dupes. But my food situation was still unstable, so I took to excellent fruit. Stable research also finished, allowing me to construct our first stable, kit with a grooming station, critter feeder, and critter drop-off point. The pip also decided to plant another seed, which made me start forming a plan on how I could use his ability. Not our immediate worry though, since oxygen was only getting worse. Luckily there was a solution, I just had to research ventilation first. Another farm plot was constructed to improve our calorie generation, but I knew heat would eventually be an issue, so we'll have to keep an eye on the electrolyzer. Another reason why hatch ranching is overpowered because they only require dirt to produce food, which isn't really affected by temperature. Back to research, we were almost stable to get the hydrogen generator, which would eventually solve our growing hydrogen problem, which was everywhere. There was too much danger at the base, so I took a quick break looking at a gravitas monument I found, an archaic phone, and surveying the area we uncovered in case there was something useful. I got back from my little trip, and how is the oxygen so low? I was gone for a minute. Tearing our floor out is the best solution, at least I think. It might improve the ventilation. Okay, Meemaw's trapped as usual, and I don't think she can... Oh, why are you standing up there, Meemaw? Why are you standing in the low oxygen? Yes, your eyes would hurt when you're standing in pure hydrogen. Okay, well, we sorted that out. How's our oxygen looking? Ooh. Fully at the mercy of research speed, I kept trying to find small tweaks I can make to the base, such as punching a hole in the floor to let the carbon dioxide drain from my research layer, which actually appeared to help. The hydrogen generator research also finished, leaving only the ventilation branch for a gas pump and the filter branch for a gas filter. At this point, I had fully exhausted all my ideas. Luckily, time was on our side, unlocking the gas pump, allowing us to build as the filter research was worked on. placing vents at the corner of the base to push the CO2 to the middle for disposal, along with long runs of ducting to evenly disperse the oxygen picked up by the pump. The filter was quickly unlocked, allowing me to filter out the hydrogen and feed it to the generator while also sending the oxygen to the rest of the base. All we could do now was hope the dupes built fast enough, and on day 13, it were the life starting to filter out the huge backlog of hydrogen, allowing the electrolyzer to finally start producing oxygen again. During all this chaos, we somehow still had an insane amount of calories. So with food and oxygen solved, I started exploring the asteroid once again, hopefully uncovering the geyser soon. After a little bit of time passed, the base no longer looked like it was on the brink of death, although carbon dioxide was getting a little out of hand. But it was time for exploration and repair. The repair being draining all the hydrogen from the top of the base by diverting it to the oxygen production room to be used in the generator. Of course, power generation problems had to enter the chat by overloading the wire. We quickly fixed that by putting the heavy energy consumers, being the electrolyzer, gas pump, and filter, on a heavy watt wire circuit and connecting them to a power transformer, downrating it to the rest of the base, since the hydrogen generator worked as a passive power production on the heavy watt circuit. Those changes took long enough for all the hydrogen to be removed from the roof, so my dupes could finally breathe easy now. With the newfound sense of security, I opened the colony doors to accept more dupes, this time accepting Camille for her amazing love for husbandry, just the dupe we needed, even having one skill point to start with, putting her only one block away from being able to ranch. I also started looking into possibly planting oxyfern for oxygen production, but after looking at the farming plot, I was not a fan about feeding an obscene amount of water for a plant to be more inefficient than an electrolyzer at producing oxygen. On the exploration front, we couldn't dig through the hard obsidian barrier covering the geyser. We would need a dupe to learn that skill. Although exploration was halted, I had a plan for our carbon dioxide issue, since the farm tile wouldn't work. So my theory for the looming carbon dioxide problem, because we need Regulane to get the pip, to put the pip down here, to feed them an oxyfern seed, which we could get from up here where they're doing nothing. And that was the plan, but who wants to be farming when there's interior design to do? The flow of the base was entirely wrong, so I tore down everything and installed a bathroom with a sink, showers, and plumb toilets on the right, moving the beds and research stations to the left side, with temporary latrines and a mush bar station in the carbon dioxide filled basement, with the final touch of doors, since a bathroom probably should need some privacy, and airflow tiles so the air could circulate between layers. The only thing left to solve was clean the polluted water generated by the bathroom, which could be done with a water sieve only requiring sand as the filtration media and power to run. Assuming it worked, I could just duct it straight back into the water reservoir, which is getting frighteningly low, so we need to find a sustainable water source sooner rather than later, which means setting up an airlock on the right side so we can start exploring like we have done on the left, since we want to make sure the oxygen is kept inside the base. In no time after starting exploration, our second geyser was discovered, which would be our main target. As for the base, a water sieve was finally set up, purifying the water as intended and not contaminating our water reservoir, which I'm surprised hasn't happened yet. As for exploration, on the left side there was nothing but even more space and radiation galore. That's a future problem though, and in the meantime, my dupes are loving the shower edition, getting a lot of morale points to learn even more skills without being stressed. I also researched the refrigerator to preserve our food supplies. For the next few researches, I looked into long-term solutions, because eventually we would need plastic from the polymer press and steel for a refinery to make an aqua tuner to prevent the heat death of my base. We still have time, but need to start moving on them before it's too late. Internal to the base, I had some batteries to keep our oxygen generator running during the night, since the dupes couldn't power the hamster wheels while they slept. On the exploration front, Meemaw discovered yet another geyser, so we had a few shots at finding a water source, such as the already uncovered saltwater geyser to the south, which I will not be using because that heat is insane. Get it away from me. I want nothing to do with it. Oh, sorry, Marie, I wasn't talking about you. You can definitely stay with your go-to carrying capabilities. Welcome aboard. We don't have a bed for you though, so I hope you don't mind sleeping inside the stable. No, it can't be anything but this. We may be having heat problems sooner rather than later, but we'll ignore it like global warming and instead get distracted by the cool new steam vent we discovered, which we won't touch further because I don't want it to erupt, spewing out hot steam everywhere. Instead, let's keep digging to the other geyser and hope for a better water producer. But first, let's survey what we uncovered from the fog. Looks like we have some fossils. Even more pokey shells strewn throughout, just peeking at us. It's a little toasty for him. You're the one who chose to live there. I didn't do that. But we do have a fairly consistent line of sight to the surface because this is a really tiny map. So, oh, shoot, nope. Okay, that's shaking. Rowan, move, Rowan. Don't go up there. I didn't like that, so instead we're going to go this way. I'm surprised that took 23 cycles for a near accident to happen. But why was that rumbling? It literally did nothing. It was like shaking and then it's just kind of like, nah fam, I'm good. Let's take a little sanity break and put some plants around the base. On the bright side, the oxygen production in the base is looking amazingly good for our bootlegged solution. Apparently at the heavy loss of our water supply, which we are running out of time to find a water source for. So let's queue up the research for the desalinator in case we have to use the extremely hot salt water. Since I also don't want my dupes to become aware of the danger, let's just finish planting potted plants everywhere. I'm sure they'll love them and not question the motive. No, bad heat. I can't deal with you right now. I'm only accepting the core complaints at the moment. Well, at least that's good news. We officially have a stable hand. Where's that hatch? You're being detained. Now, I know you may not trust me, considering you're hogtied, but you're going to love your new home as long as you make me food. Otherwise, you'll become food. Then I uncovered a cool slush geyser, the solution to all our problems. No longer do I have to entertain the idea of using boiling hot salt water that honestly would cause only problems. We just need to add a little catch bowl for the water with a liquid pump at the bottom, and it also has the added benefit of being extremely cold. But on second thought, why should I use this water supply all the way up here when I can make a man-made waterfall destroying the environment and installing a liquid pump to claim all the water for my base, since it is considerably closer than the alternative and doesn't require desalinator processing. As for a cute little hatch, he is almost fully tamed, so he will start laying eggs soon and our barbecue empire will begin. Since our carbon dioxide is a slight concern with the well-being of our base, I'm actually going to do the thing with the pip to where if I put the seeds down here for the oxyfern, I lock the pip in there, he's bound to locate those ferns somewhere. And if he locates them on the dirt tile, then that means that I don't have to care for them by giving them water. In the meantime, it looks like we finally got all of our decorative plants in place, even though they appear to have died. There they are. So from there I attempted to relocate the oxyfern seeds to the CO2 pit, but the pip was too good at his job and started planting them already. So I detained him for the time being, which he really didn't like, but was very necessary to get the seeds in the right spot. While the seeds were moved, our hatch was finally tamed, so in a few days we would have eggs rolling in as a food source. Then the pip was sent to his new permanent home filled with all the seeds he could ever need, even though he did try to escape once, but I assure you he wants to be here, and once he returned started getting to work right away. Even though he clearly loves his new job, I needed to seal him into the area to make sure he didn't accidentally wander away and plant the seeds where they weren't needed. Everything would have gone as planned if Camille didn't all of a sudden have the impulsive need to stand in the carbon dioxide rich area. No, Camille, why are you going down there? This is the last place you should be. Why are you down there? No, trust me, you do not want to go there. Well, luckily the black glitch are up instead of down, because this is pure carbon dioxide, and that would not have ended well. With CO2 disposal now solved, we had to set our sights back on getting more water, which meant running electrical wire to the pump set up earlier. Unfortunately, we were entirely out of metal to build it, so I went around finding every metal patch, commanding my dupes to pillage the planet of all its resources, bringing us up to 9.4 tons of aluminum, so we would be good for quite a bit, allowing the pump to kick into action, pumping water into our reservoir. Our hatch also decided to lay their first egg, although it was a sage hatch egg, which in my opinion are way too high maintenance to be worth ranching. So in 20 cycles, the egg will hatch, and we can take out the sage hatch to make barbecue. We also finished all the polymer press and aquatuna researches, so the next target was unlocking the next tier of science, applied science. As for the pip, he already planted all the oxyferns, so hopefully we would soon see a huge drop in the CO2 levels. With everything going as planned, my concept of reality of course had to be shattered by accidentally clicking on the teleporter, which exposed a galaxy world map of the planets I discovered and the overwhelming amount of things unknown. As for the planet Abnormala that we can teleport to, it looks quite deadly. All I can see is a vacuum of space and lava directly below the surface. So we'll leave exploring that planet for another day. In the meantime, we can inspect the teleporter, transmitter, and receiver to get databanks for research in the way future. As for the item teleporters I found earlier, I now think they might teleport items between planets instead of with each other on the same planet. But we can test that when we build up enough courage to go to Abnormala. For exploration on this planet, I continued our left side ladder down further to what appears to be a very radioactive biome. For the right side, the top is entirely uncovered, so we'll build another ladder descending into the dark depths to see what we find. Oh, and we uncovered something quite horrifying. A beta. I'm not scared of him now, he's not an alpha. A beta hive though. 100% metabolism. Don't know why they're metabolizing stuff. They eat uranium ore and exert enriched uranium. So I don't know how I exploit this. I just know I probably shouldn't send a dupe down there. But anyway, there's a new principle. Heck, you know what? We'll take some spiffy overalls. I don't really want another dupe. His calories are good right now. They could turn at any point, and adding another dupe could do that. So Camille, you're a rancher, you may as well get the overalls. And we have our farmer. For our research, the material study was discovered, but it required refined metal to build, so the refinery was the next research target. And while they're researching that, do we see any other horrors down here? Okay, so there's the bottom of the world. I'm bottomed out, so there's not much more in the depths. Oh geez, there's more. There's 3 of them now. Okay, so I guess a B tiny, and then a beta. Oh, and that is a bunch of radioactive ore. I'll be able to do something with radioactive ore. Oh, and there's the bottom of the world, it looks like. There's some lava and another layer of abyssalite. Water reservoir is filling up a decent amount. It's still kind of slow going, but it is always running. Our exploration downward was going swiftly with the combined efforts of Mima and Rowan, which was great to see since it's my plan to have them be the dynamic duo of planet colonization. Since things were going so well, I felt a little adventurous. How about we dig our way to the teleporter and send Rowan to the other planet? You know, the one with the vacuum of space and lava everywhere. I'm sure he'll be fine. He looks still together anyway, so let's send it. How do I send him? Oh, teleport. Beam me up, Rowan. Okay, it looks like he... Oh, so this is actually a decent asteroid. Big brain jar. So I'm surprised he didn't die. How's our... Okay, oxygen is actually good in here. We have a little bit of food to work with. Cryo tank. Oh, there's a friend in there. I don't know if I'm ready for the other dupe yet. Okay, it looks like we can teleport them back, so that's good. We'll need to get things set up eventually. So we got some water up there. Okay, we're at the bottom of the world. Looks like there's some shimmers of an abundant amount of metal, mealwood for food along with bristleberry. So I think for the time being, I probably should send Rowan back. Good job, Rowan. You didn't die, and that is always a good start. Now that we've uncovered this, I can see what's going on. So all the dupes are still alive, so that's always promising. I'm always concerned with Meemaw making the dangerous voyage down there. Back at the main base, I relocated all the mealwood seeds I could find to an enclosed room for planting by the pip, which I promptly released for the first time in weeks. Don't worry, he'll be caught soon. For now, he can stretch his legs and roam the base. The right side elevator was also expanded to expose even more salt water in case we needed it. On day 34, our little Pip buddy, which we may as well call Pippy, was captured and sent to work planting more wild mealwood plants. We got fried mushrooms from the printing pod to keep our food supplies up. Then a metal refinery, rock crusher, and kiln were built in the cool/geyser area in hopes of producing refined metal and controlling the heat they produced. Oxygen was sparse in the building area, but I was confident they would be fine. Rowan uncovered even more saltwater deposits and another beta hive. Along with the beta hive was also a Saturn critter trap. Not sure what that does, but my dupes should probably avoid it. Then the dupes did the inevitable of peeing on the floor. How? Why? There's bathrooms. Oh, they're empty. Oh, that's probably why they're empty. Because I turned off the water pumps for some reason. So from there, all my dupes took their turn peeing on the floor, and I mopped up all their messes. At least none of them used water reservoir as the toilet, so I consider that a win. Pippy was quite productive, at least, planting so many mealwood plants in the farm area. As for my dupes, I had them turn on the liquid pump once more to send the last bits of water from the puddle to a reservoir, so now there hopefully is no more confusion on what pump I need supplying the water to the base, since we don't want to make a habit of the dupes peeing on the floor. Then I stumbled upon something I probably shouldn't have, because we explored the entirety of the map except for in radioactive nowhere. Oh. And that beehive was glowing. I'll let them keep their secrets and instead streamline the base by connecting the right and left side of the base at the bottom of the world so my dupes can route to do their tasks more efficiently. Day 36, I started by blowing all my stored up metal supply on a fire pole going down the right side elevator for even faster travel. Definitely not for my dupes' entertainment and their free time. We haven't checked if oxygen was included for a bit, which it is, but with a rampantly growing carbon dioxide problem, despite the oxyfern addition. So let's try to solve it by tapering the ceiling so it's easier for the oxygen to flow up and the CO2 to flow down. Pretending like that actually did something, I investigated the radioactive biome, trying to determine if it was safe for my dupes. So it's barely safe. Oh, it's barely safe, but that means it's safe. Flawless logic, and OSHA, you saw nothing. Then I found a third beta hive with a side of tranquil toes. What are they? I don't care to find out. My toes should not be tranquil. There was also a Saturn critter trap that appeared to be closed, so it apparently could eat betas. Day 37, I added a battery and hamster wheel to the metal refinery area to generate power to run the machines and queued up our aluminum to start being refined. Then I unlocked drywall from the research tree, and debatably I may have went a little overboard. But trust the process. This base will look clean once it's all built. The hatch also laid another sage hatch egg, which prompted me to change the hatch's diet from dirt to exclusively sedimentary rock to increase the odds of getting a stone hatch egg. We want stone hatches because they eat granite, igneous, and sedimentary rock, which are insanely abundant on this planet. Day 38, I built drywall. Oh, you thought I did something else? Let me check. Yeah, no, this is all I did. I'm a little surprised also. But by the end of the day, we were already seeing an improvement in the base's decor, so the process was working. Day 39, I contemplated my life decision of building the drywall because all of a sudden, my base was getting really toasty and the drywall seemed to be spreading the heat. But just trust the process and we should be fine. I hope. Day 40, our first chunk of refined metal was made at the rock crusher. Even though it worked, it was inefficient since you lose 50% of the mass of the metal you input. So I started building the infrastructure to get the metal refinery going, which is 100% efficient. This meant using the cool/geyser as the liquid coolant for the refinery and outputting the superheated liquid after running the machine back into the basin, where the cool slush should cool down, along with running a heavy watt wire instead of the small version, since this behemoth takes 1200 watts to run and would short circuit the small one. While that built, we checked on Pippy, who got 4 mealwood plants growing for us. Great work, little buddy. And Meemaw finally gained the ability to mine obsidian, so these annoying blocks in our way could finally go. Day 41, I accidentally flooded the bottom of the world with salt water, so we would have to mop that up at some point before exploring the radioactive biome to prevent harming the betas by overheating them with the hot water. As for our food situation, somehow we acquired a bristleberry seed. They weren't native to the planet, so my best guess is it came from a printing pod shipment. Pippi's farm was also producing its first harvest, so our food situation was looking quite good. Meemaw was a unit of a miner and already removed the obsidian that was blocking the cool slush geyser, which posed a new threat of having too much brine water, so I extended the walls a little bit taller. I started day 42 by queuing up countless mining operations for even more metal. The heavy hot wire for the refinery setup and the fire poles proved to be quite costly. To speed up the mining, I devoted one of our own skill points to mining. While most of the dupes were mining, there was still Lyra at the base wanting to research something. So I started down the space program route, researching vital buildings such as a rocket platform, nose cone, trailblazer module, and space science, in hopes of getting Rowan to travel to stars in search of oil. On day 43, I used all the metal from yesterday to finish hooking up the cooling loop for the refinery by running power to the liquid pump. I also decided to use Meemaw's new ability to uncover what geyser is to the top left of our base, which was found to be another cool slush geyser, but outputting polluted water, which gave me an idea. Due to its close proximity to the base, I could duct the water through the hot areas to act as a cooling loop utilizing radiant pipes made from refined metal, which we could get from our now functional refinery, getting its first few bits of coolant. While refined metal was being made, I ran a pipeline from the polluted water geyser to the biggest heat generator of the base, being the electrolyzer, adding in the radiant pipes as I got the refined metal produced. The radiant pipes were needed because, as their name suggests, they easily transfer heat from the cool liquid inside them to the hot surroundings, making the hot surroundings now cooler by absorbing the heat inside the liquid in the pipes. While the cooling line was built, I relocated the Pip from his old room to the Hatch's stable in hopes of getting him to plant even more mealwood on the natural tiles, which I quickly destroyed by accidentally running the base coolant line through them. Luckily I caught early, so only 2 tiles were lost, and I rerouted the cooling line so it ran through the bathroom waste pipelines instead. On the bright side, the slush geyser is fully constructed with the pipe. It appears to be running all the way over and connected to our water sieve. So now it's a matter of providing it power. Well, it looks like the battery's flowing for the first time. It's pumping through. Oh, and that's a little bit of a backlog. How's the temperature distribution? Ooh, that's toasty. We can definitely see a few cold blue tiles where the pipes are at, so I think we're onto winter and just need to let it do its thing. As for our research, we finished the space exploration route, only stopped by our lack of applied science. So for the time being, the next one would be the glass forge, so we would be able to build solar panels as a passive power source. The only reason why applied science was still our limiter was because of not having enough refined metal to build the research station. That's mainly because my solution for power production for the refinery is bad. I have a dupe charge a medium-sized battery, which does not last more than a few seconds of running the refinery, so it doesn't run for very long and takes forever to make one batch of refined metal. We have to look for the good news though, so here is cute little Pippi Jr. learning the ropes from his singular parent, which doesn't make sense now that I think about it. So here's our finished cool new fire pole, which means all of the outstanding build operations have been finished. So I sent my dupes to drain the ocean we accidentally made at the bottom of the world. The only tricky part was sneaking in a mop operation since the water level was too high. Once we had a foothold, I kept spamming mop operations as the water level lowered, leaving my dupes with the fun task of getting wet from wading in the water, making the dirt floor shine like it was brand new, with me as their supportive cheerleader. Okay lads, new day, new you. We are going to beat this ocean until there is none left on the border of radioactive hell. Oh, 2 of them are already quitting. That's always good. Hopefully this time they'll revolt with the ocean regrowing. Oh no, it's regrowing. No, we had it. You just had to hold the front line. As the war for clean floors waged on, the printing pod gave me a gift of 3 hatch eggs, which immensely shifted our food sustainability progress forward since I needed a certain population of hatches producing eggs to feed my dupes. Soon after, the water war of 49 was over, allowing us to expand downward into the radiation biome. That was needed because for applied science, I also needed radbolts along with the refined metal, which were made from radiation, coincidentally found in the radiation biome at a decent amount that I could collect with our next research path, uncovering the radbolt generator. In preparation for applied research, I had Lyra learn the skill, allowing her to do it. Oh, and we do have a sage hatch who just hatched, so that must have been the first egg that our little guy laid for us. So let me just build an electric grill for no particular reason. I promise, I just built it for fried mush bars, nothing else. I just went to greet the little sage hatch to the colony, making sure to explain his job role so he wasn't blindsided when we put him to work. Once he was on the same page, I sent him to his workstation. Of course, though, I've had a slight oversight because I do not have a dupe with the cooking skill. So I'll get back with the sage hatch eventually. As for the cooling loop, I'd say heat is no longer a concern and we won't have to set up a proper cooling loop anytime soon. After a day of contemplation, I decided to fold and have Camille duel as our cook and stable hand. I didn't want to split her priorities since she's now making and cooking the food, but all the other dupes were needed for construction errands, such as placing an incubator next to the polluted geyser to speed up the hatching speed of our hatches so our stables could get to producing food faster. The only concern with the incubator was the heat it produced, hence its location to the geyser, away from the base, and the polluted water was insanely cold. There's our first egg put in there, and it does look like they have 200 extra kilograms of refined metal up there now. So at least we know that our very precious metal is stored on the floor. How's our temperature doing? Okay, so right now the temperature is okay, but you can see kind of the wisps of heat causing a problem. But that is controlled enough for me. As for the base, I had even more radiant pipes to continue removing the heat, all thanks to Rome controlling our jank refinery set up like a pro. I also diverted the cooling loop to not go through the bathrooms to prevent backlogs of polluted water causing dupes to pee on the floor. Surprisingly, even with the polluted water being sieved, the reservoir was still looking quite low. So to prevent a water crisis, I decided to start pumping the polluted water nestled under the base into the reservoir. My dupes at the time were also extremely happy, which allowed me to teach them even more skills without getting stressed. The only problem was I had no idea why they were so happy and if it was sustainable. My best guess was they ate some barbecue. No time to worry about that because I hooked up the polluted water vents horrendously wrong. I overthought something. This pump should not be connected to this line because it's going to go straight into our water reserve. Deconstruct that bridge, yellow alert. Mima, build slower. Okay, it looks like Camille's got it. Oh, deconstruct faster. What's she deconstructing? It shouldn't be taking that long. Oh, geez, what? No! Somebody else, get on there. Deconstruct the pipes. Oh, geez. Okay, we halted it. What is taking you so long? Jeez, Camille. Oh, my lord. That was close. So instead we wanted to bridge up here and split into that. And the water is flowing through the veins of the base to be water sieved into our water supply. So judging by the quantity of this water, it should be quite a decent amount to buffer our lack thereof. Cooking wise, it looks like the mush bars are being turned into fried mush bars. Maybe that's what's making them a little bit happier also, aside from the barbecue, which we still have 1,000 grams of. To escape the near crisis that almost happened at the home base, I spent cycle 55 contemplating how to get radbolts. I needed a radiation dense area for the radbolt generators, and considering the highest radiation on the home planet was considered mostly safe, that would just not do. So I ventured to Abnormal to see if it had anything I could use, and I was not disappointed. Oh, so we got a nymph down there. Oh my lord. Oh, I think I found our radbolt generators. Significant hazard. So apparently Weezewort, or is that what it's called? Yeah, Weezewort is a really good radioactive substance. So it's nice to know that this is definitely where we'll be doing our research. The only thing is that How do we make a second sustainable colony with both of them running at the same time, no pause? So there's food, it appears down here, bristle blossom, some meal lice. So maybe if I have one dupe running the show over here, that's all it would take. And another thing that I also found out, for better or worse, is you can peer at the geysers on the asteroids. So there's a carbon dioxide, hot fluid oxygen, liquid sulfur, and carbon dioxide geyser. That tells me that all of these geysers and vents are completely useless compared to our starting one that had 2 water sources and a steam vent. Water will be the only concern, so oxygen. Somehow we need to get an oxygen source. I think food is fairly sorted for them. We got more spicy tofu. I will take more food. Look at that. Oh, get out of there, Hatch. I was looking at something else. The stone hatch egg. We got it finally. The empire begins. So I really need to get a demolisher to take out part of this in our way, because I need the stable to be the max size so the hatches don't get overcrowded. So I gave P the demolisher trait. Something else I really need to do is block off all these polluted water sources, because they're releasing polluted oxygen in the air, which I am not a fan of. The dupes don't suffer too much from it, but why have polluted oxygen when you can have clean oxygen? Polluted oxygen sources have now been sealed up, and unfortunately for the sage hatch, another one has hatched and will promptly become food. Get him, Rowan! Teach him who's boss. Oh geez, he's sniping him from across the room. Rowan, you sharp shot. For the rest of day 56, I worked on building a desalinator to take the brine water from the refinery cooling loop and send it back to the base, since our water reservoir was still drying up faster than was being replenished. Day 57, the desalinator was all built except for a couple wires. The only issue with this setup was still power. A possible solution could be using the coal from the hatches to run coal generators. For that to work, we still needed the hatches to grow up and there to be more of them. Day 58, the desalinator started producing a small trickle of water, hopefully solving our water usage problem. But oh boy, look at that water flowing in. We have our polluted water vent screaming through, cooling down our base. We have the polluted pool, and that's kind of causing a junction here for it to go slow. And then at the sieve, we have it sieving the polluted water, and we have our salt water source going in here also. So we have quite a healthy supply of water coming in. The next area of focus was now expanding the size of the stables to the max size, utilizing P as our demolition expert, with Meemaw and Rowan doing their best to help. And they locked themselves in there. Of course you did. Well, at least Rowan didn't just do it to Meemaw. You guys know if you dig through that wall, you will have oxygen, right? And she's going Super Saiyan again. They did eventually free themselves, and I got a hatchling from the printing pot, which would have been quite useful a bit ago, but I will still gladly take him, bringing our hatch count up to 2, with at least 5 eggs on the way. Oh geez, and carbon dioxide is definitely an issue. So I added a carbon skimmer in with the oxyferns to try and get rid of as much carbon dioxide as possible. I also queued up the research for smart batteries, which hold a larger charge than the current batteries and lose much less power over time. The next issue I addressed was the stinky bleach stones farting its toxic clouds of chlorine into the air. In theory, not a big issue, but it was actually killing my mealwood plants, which I needed for food, so into the saltwater ocean they go to prevent off-gassing. Then the incubator finished hatching one of the eggs, bringing our hatch population all the way up to 3. The skimmer at the bottom does appear to be helping a little bit. Our power is holding up. Not really. And I have expanded our stables so that we have 3 on the right side of our base. Some of the mealwood have sprouted. There's one here, which will sadly have to go for this pillar. But there should be 3 in this room. And this pip actually did stay in there. And as for the other one, where'd he go? Oh. That's a hunk of meat there. No, couldn't be. Did he suffocate? No! Pippy. Oh, he probably died from old age. Rip Pippy. He served us beautifully. Planted so much mealwood and kept our base running. He was truly a member of this crew. Which brings me to an unfortunate decision I had to make. Pippi was now a chunk of meat, and my dupes do need food. On one hand, he was a pet that we cherished, and now he's a chunk of meat that will rot. Should we utilize his meat and cook it, or just leave it be? While I had this dilemma, my dupes clearly did not, already feeding the meat into the grill, so I decided to let this go since on day one I had myself on record saying this. Polluted water down there, a pip which we could use as a food source. So I always knew this was a possibility and made the dumb decision of naming him. At least in this way, he will live on in the colony by sustaining my dupes. Moral dilemma aside, the carbon skimmer proved to be very effective, almost solving our carbon issues in one day, making it so the oxyferns barely had to run at all. Which brings me to a tricky dilemma. The base is functioning with my dupe's need for oxygen, power, food, temperature, and morale all met. But my stables are annoyingly too small since the teleporters to Abnormala are in the way and can't physically be moved. So I need to shift the entire base 2 blocks over to get my stables to the right size so the hatches don't get overcrowded and can produce even more eggs. While I'm at it, I may as well also relocate the sleeping quarters, bathrooms, and oxygen to optimize my dupe's travel time. That sounds like a lot of work, so let's cut 16 days into the future when it's all done. And here is the mostly completed base. You can see how we expanded upwards and we have a new power generation module with 2 coal generators, our hydrogen generator, the electrolyzer, and 2 separate power transformers to take the bulk load of all the generated power, split it into 2 1000 watt lines to run on the right side and left side of the base. And along with that, we have a smart battery that has an automation line going to it so that when this battery is full, it signals to these to be like, hey, don't use the coal, we're maxed out. And again, the oxygen just builds up, hydrogen goes up, gets sucked down, sorted with the hydrogen going to the generator, and then the oxygen going through to vents that go on the right side and the left side of the base, which this time I have it being split, so it's half and half per side, and then just filters down both of them from the side of the room to sweep in all the bad stuff to the central column that then goes down to be cleaned out, which is just the carbon dioxide. But there is some trace amounts of chlorine gas hiding in here that will settle down here and cause problems, but we'll just face that problem when we get there. And with that addition, we also had to expand this a little bit to the left. We shifted the entire column in the middle to the left, add a fireman pole for faster travel, expand our farming area, put our supercomputer right by the water reservoir so that the water it uses for research is right there. Same with this research, they're just both next to each other and really easy to get to. Put the grill on the second floor, musher, freezer, and I will add some hydroponic farm plots here. But first I want to get this area situated because we now have 1, 2, and 3 stables fully set up, ready to go. The rooms are considered stables. They are 96 out of 96 tiles, with 7 out of 7 of the regular hatches captured and 2 out of 7 of the stone hatches. So we are looking really good on those. Also managed to get some hatch eggs from the printing pod. And along with that, inside stables, we do have about 4 meal wood plants per stable producing food for us. So that is great as well. And our pip also did escape, so we probably should relocate him back where he belongs. Along with that, I also did a little bit something different with how our cooling loop works. We still have it coming out of the cool slush geyser, which is getting a little bit too full for my liking. I had to disconnect the power temporarily because, as you can see, our water was getting crazy full. And I also had to stop our desalinator for the same reason, which is also a little bit dangerously topped off. But on the bright side, that does mean we have an ample amount of water coming in between these 2 geysers. And this one down here that was a pool is fully empty now. So we can expand downward, add another level, and do something with the polluted oxygen. I think I'm just going to have my dupes breathe it in and get rid of it that way. And as for oxygen, I have 1 and 2 oxygen generators running at the same time. So before I cut the ties between the 2 layers, I did make sure both sides are pressurized. And just in case our 2 coal generators and our hydrogen generator are not enough, we do have a manual generator hooked up to the heavy watt wire, so a dupe can solve the issue if need be. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a few mesh tiles per layer, just so that the air can flow down, and on the sides as well. As for the cooling loop, it does look like it is running. Yep, it is indeed. So our cooling loop, I kind of didn't explain that. It's going from here, going up through our industrial district, and then weaving through all the different floors so that it can just provide a little bit of cooling to all of them, because I made them out of sedimentary rock, which are thermally reactive, compared to igneous rock that is resistant to changing its temperature. And the only addition I have left to do with is to add my radiant pipes every so often. I don't know if I want to have them everywhere. I'm going to do them every other one, and we'll see how that does. Temperature wise, yeah, it is spewing out quite a bit of heat. That's doing quite a bit there. For the most part, that does look like everything is built. Our calories were iffy at points, but it did work itself out. And we're about to see firsthand, yep, hydrogen generator just ran out of its hydrogen at the top, and our coal generator took over and is starting to power up the smart battery. I think it's time to do some mass deconstruction. Now, this could go wrong. I am getting rid of the lifeline of our entire playthrough. We do have a better system that should optimistically be working, and all these resources here are very vital. I was running out of aluminum ore near the end of the remodeling, so all these resources will be very useful. One concern is that these do spew out quite a bit of carbon dioxide, which I think that's just kind of necessary evil, and putting them on top of the base, that may or may not have been the best idea, but it's just going to flow down. Hopefully my dupes don't mind that's falling on them while they sleep, which I did manage to actually get an extra cot, and it looks like I can fit in yet another one, which I definitely will. So we can accept 2 more dupes. The only thing is food, I want it to be better. So to me that means if we get these hydroponic farms, we plop in, let's start with 4 of them. Because with our fairly reliable power source being coal and hydrogen and manpower, because optimistically this will power the entirety of the base. So no more manual spread around. And I even connected the left side wire to this pump, those incubators, and that is overloading. Okay, we need to sort that out. So there's 240, so that's 480. 480 plus 240 is 720. So then we can also add on this for 960 and the grill. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut those ties. So with those slight changes, it shouldn't be able to be over wattaged. And I'm going to try and connect the other line. I'll feed it through the walls to keep my dupes as happy as I can. And it'll be to the other 1000 joule system, which it looks like the other system is going to be taking 120 plus the 60 for the research. So that's 180 plus the big research. So that's 300 plus the main pump of water into the base. So that's 540. This is 660 with the skimmer. And then the water receive is 780. So then we can get 220 more watts on that wire. Technically nothing else, since the refinery is disconnected from the base and we may connect it to the main grid later on. And this pull going down the entirety of the base should also massively increase the speed. But if I can keep the dupes traversing up and down at a minimum, that would be very much preferred. Because we'll have the rancher who has to climb up to all these, make him happy. Then on this side, I think this can just be living quarters. And how are the incubators doing temperature-wise? Oh yeah. So next install, the hydroponic farms are in. We only had 1 bristle blossom seed, but it did need a light, which is a source of heat. But since we have our sick little cooling loop going through the entire base, good old polluted water as usual, I'm not too worried about that heat source. And this should keep spiraling, giving us more bristleberry, and it'll give us a reason to use up all this overabundance of water, which we clearly can't use up there since this is stockpiled back and this, I'm surprised, hasn't overflown. Oh, it's dormant. So that's how high it can get before it goes dormant. I was wondering if it would spill over. So that extra tile did come in handy. As for the final phase of this build project, I think this dupe layout for their beds and their living quarters isn't quite optimized. So instead, in these 1, 2, 3 rooms here, I'll leave this one blank because I could just shove a bunch of manual generators there if need be, expand power down. But for these 2 and this floor here, oh, we got to spill fluid water. That's always good. I'm going to have a washroom to where they have to wash their hands, take a shower, use the bathroom, and then there's going to be 4 cots that they can go to. So this will be a little living node with a barracks, a washroom. So we got 4, 8, 12 possible dupe living quarters. And the reason why I'm doing it this way is right now they're in the wide open and nowhere, but this washroom gives +2 morale. And with this setup, there's more bathrooms, so they won't fill up as fast, and the cots in their own room form a barracks. That also boosts morale. All the new living quarters are now constructed, and it does appear the dupes are really taking a shining to it. Looking at the skills, we have quite a bit that have leveled up. Rowan is probably one of the more unhappy ones, but if we take a look at Camille, she has 14 morale, Lyra at 19, Marie at 21, so yeah, the dupes are really happy, and I feel like we can increase their skills a little bit, make them a little bit better dupes. For Camille, we are going to let her get even better at husbandry, because we want her to be kind of our go-to farmer and husbandry expert. I'm going to hold off on the farmer for a second. Ideally, we would have somebody who that is their entire job. Lyra, research-wise, nothing's really jumping out that she has to have. Marie could definitely be a better constructor though. Meanwhile, our super digging experts. Carrying capacity is always something good a dupe should have. Seems like P is going to be our construction and our automation expert because she's kind of on the track and she does actually like doing that. So may as well move her towards that and could also get her able to do it. I'm going to wait to see how the morale works out because I don't know if this morale will be consistently at 20 since we don't have the hatches fully automated yet. Because you see Rowan here at 9. So, and we'll give Rowan a little bit of research since he is our pilot and he needs that to become a piloting expert as well. The next order of business is we do not need this bathroom in any way, shape, or form anymore. We already have 3 of each modules, a lavatory, shower, and sink. So I don't see a point in having this old system here anymore. And there will be a huge water spill unless we can do this smart. If I deconstruct this pipe down there and I join it into that pipe there, oh, look at me go. Not causing a massive spill, only a small one. And in this room's place, I am thinking about putting either the cooking or a mess hall. What that does tell me though is I think this water sieve would be better moved maybe down to this little nook there because that kind of works perfectly. And there we are all hooked up. A little bit jank in the corners like missing drywall and stuff, but we have 12 mess tables. We have a kitchen. Is it considered a kitchen? It is not. We have a grill, we have a micro musher, we have a refrigerator. That looks like a kitchen, but the printing pod is kind of in the way and annoying, but that's part of a kitchen now. And we have our water sieve working, polluted water is going in, clean water is going out. It could still overflow, so something we'll have to address. But we got our mess hall, we have our living quarters, we have our power and oxygen generation, which is a little bit lacking, so we might need to attach another electrolyzer, which is a little unfortunate. And then we have our stables on the side. We have 4 stone hatches, 7 regular hatches, and we have 1 egg sitting in there and 2 being incubated at a time. Camille doing a wonderful job, which brings me to the kill chamber. For the eggs that aren't lucky enough to be part of our colony, they are food. No, don't eat those. Ah. Speaking of a kill chamber, we definitely need one. I was in the middle of setting it up, and the eggs we got from the pod decided to hatch, and they're eating our food. But now they are food. 'Tis the cycle of life, and they will never know what happened right below them. And in no time at all, we have constructed our kill chamber. It's quite simple and crude to the point. We have the hatches up here, they lay eggs, and we have it set up in one of them where we have an auto sweeper to pick up these eggs, and then it loads it in this conveyor loader. It goes into this conveyor line all the way down to this chute, dropped into the water, where you can see there are 3 eggs sitting. They're locked behind the door so that the dupes can't access them. And when they grow up and eventually hatch, they'll drown, drop meat. They can get picked up, brought to the stove, and cooked. And all done automatically. Only problem, we are completely out of metal. If you look at our resources, aluminum is at 77 kilograms, and we cannot physically run the power to this auto sweeper and conveyor loader to finish the other 3 areas, or even build another grooming station. So in an attempt to solve that problem, I mined every single ore on the planet. You can see there's no glimmers anymore. There's the glimmers here of the cobalt and the iron, but I'm not going to use iron for wires because that needs to be made into steel for space exploration. And there's nothing anywhere else on the top part, but there is uranium inside this area here. So I'm tempted to make wiring out of uranium ore. Sounds like an awful idea. So that's a option to get ore. I think we're ultimately going to have to do that. But in the meantime, I do have another solution. This network over here with the rock crusher, metal refinery, kiln, and desalinator has a bunch of heavy wire. What if instead we break down all this, move it to right below our power and oxygen generators, and slide it right into there, which is exactly what we'll do. And only 3 cycles later, it'll look a little something like this, with the desalinator, metal refinery, and rock crusher, all hooked up to heavy watt wire powered by our central bus. And we have our salt water going directly from the cold slush geyser all the way to our base. And that line also has an electrical cable going from our base to there. Surprisingly, this is crazy cheap compared to having a bunch of heavy watt wire all the way over here. So power from the central bus is powering that, and it's spurred off by this power transformer connected to the central bus. And we have all refineries in this area. The saltwater brine gets to go into our refinery. When it's done, it goes out, jumps over, goes into the desalinator, which then spits out the cold, clean water down the side of our base to the very bottom, and then snakes around across the bottom, goes up a level right below our hatch kill chamber, and then up to our plants, and all the way back to the water reservoir to tee off to be stored. And the logic of this line is it'll provide cooling for our plants along with cooling at the base, because believe it or not, the world is fighting against us. There is a huge amount of heat that the game is slamming at us. So I put some insulated tile at the bottom to try and stop it. But I think a buffer of these sedimentary pipes with the cold, clean water going through will provide enough of a buffer to keep our base safe. And I don't know if I said this in the overall base explanation, but it did go down. There's this little shoot off down here and a little trickle down system for our carbon dioxide to gather at the bottom. The oxyferns to take it out, or the skimmer to take it. And we did recruit our pip to plant our last 2 oxyferns. And I'm just going to move him to our dining hall, and that could be his permanent residence. Because believe it or not, he does give a decor boost. So he'll make the dupes happy, and when they're eating, they'll be extra happy. So believe it or not, that means our whole base is powered by this central network. It's run inside the base. It's actually cooled beautifully. All of our water is collected in one area, and we have more than enough. Food is prospering. And with all these changes, we have 3,500 extra kilograms of aluminum ore. So that does mean we can plonk a grooming station, critter drop-off, and a feeding port. And we still have 3,000 left to do some automation work. So from there, I made use of our newly positioned refinery to make refined metal for the sweepers and conveyor loaders, adding another pipeline to allow the brine water to bypass the refinery to keep our reservoir topped off, while still having enough water to run the refinery. While the metal was being refined, I sent my dupes to mine up the cobalt and iron we found from earlier. I knew the iron could be made into steel for an aqua tuner, but had no idea where to use the cobalt since it was a new ore I had never seen. For both the ores, I made sure to have the dupes store them in a storage container back at the base for easy access when we do eventually use them. In the matter of 2 cycles, I had enough refined metal to build the 2 sweepers and conveyor loaders along with the rails to now have a fully automated hatch setup, outputting raw meat with minimal dupe input. But that was at a cost. The superheated coolant from the refinery making all the refined metal had to go somewhere, which was through my base and into the water reservoir. A design oversight, but by splitting the brine water like I did earlier, there would be a supply of cold brine water also pumping through the base, so I figured it would work itself out. As for research, we were almost done with all the ones we could reach with basic and advanced science alone. We were mainly limited by material science that we still had no solution for, but in the meantime we could still chip away at the final automation and decoration research branches. To put your mind at ease, the brine water line was working itself out, as seen by what it looks like in the cool stage when the refinery isn't run. Only thing that we are slightly running into is our power situation is not quite optimal. You can see that it is not charging very fast, if at all, with everything running at full tilt, even with me giving her all. We weren't really using that rock crusher, and I think that instead putting 2 hamster wheels there is a better location of the space. And tell you what, I'll even put the rock crusher right up in this corner. And we had the exact amount of aluminum ore to get this done. With all 3 hamster wheels running, it looked like this fix would work since our battery started getting a charge. The next question was why the oxygen wasn't being included fast enough. This was the worst our oxygen had been in a long time, and since my dupe quantity hasn't changed, our oxygen consumption hasn't either. My best guess was we were losing it to the outside of the base, by the dupes entering and leaving very often to tend to the hatch incubators, so I sadly had to remove some mealwood plants along with the incubators and made it part of the interior of the base, still being cooled by the geyser, just accessible through one of the bedrooms. I also add an electrolyzer to the middle of the base to double our oxygen production and centralize it for easier distribution, since the bottom of the base was the area lacking in oxygen, along with adding a radiant pipe to keep the area cool with even more airflow tiles to get the carbon dioxide to the bottom of the base easier for removal. For the last action of my 100 days, I made the top of the base slope to divert all the hydrogen from the centralized electrolyzer to the gas pump feeding the hydrogen generator at the top, and made the floor of the stables a mixture of tiles and airflow tiles, making sure to leave the mealwood plants for passive food generation. With all of these changes, the oxygen was looking included, so the base was stable once more. Thanks everyone for watching. It appears we survived 100 days. So I'll see you in the next one to see if we can make it to 200. Captain's Log, Day 100, Rowan reporting for duty. I've been put in charge of running the radioactive paradise, and I'm not sure why me of all dupes. The last colony I was part of kicked me out as cannon fodder into a temporal tear. In my opinion, I think Bert should have been sent since he hurt the colony more than he helped. But here I am. A copy of what everyone else saw as a perfect dupe and capable of doing any wrong. I had aspirations too, goals of flying rockets through the stars, exploring the universe and all its secrets, but most importantly, returning home to my friends. That isn't my reality though. Here I am after my first rocket voyage, starting over from square one, leading a whole new colony, all alone. Apparently I have what it takes since we've survived 100 days. It wasn't easy, especially starting this journey with Meemaw by my side. We were best friends at the Phoenix Project, but for some reason she doesn't remember me. May just be her old age, but I'd like to believe she's the same Meemaw. That can't be the case though, because all the other dupes that have joined my colony and were part of the Phoenix Project don't remember me either. Lyra, Marie, Camille, and most surprisingly P don't remember. All of them part of the group that cast me into the temporal tear. Something feels wrong about this universe. Like I'm a wolf hiding in sheep's wool, having vivid memories of a colony that shouldn't have been possible. I pushed these troubling thoughts aside for the sake of the colony though. The oxygen wasn't included, forcing us to make leaps and bounds in our research to build an electrolyzer earlier than should have been possible. But we managed to do it, buying us time to scrounge up food, eating dirt, lice, rocks, and whatever else we were willing to eat. As we started moving, everything felt like muscle memory. Harnessing geysers for water, creating a centralized oxygen machine and power network, and luxuries like barracks, bathrooms, and a dining hall. We all came together to fight for our survival and won, even though the same can't be said for Pippi. I really like that little guy and will miss him. Pippi Jr. is carrying on the name and helping immensely with our agriculture. Survival wasn't guaranteed, but now that I have a functioning base, I want to see the stars again and start exploring the galaxy. It's always been my dream, and something about this universe feels different than the last. Like there's so much more to explore that I'll get spaced out in all of the wonders I'll find. I don't like the circumstances that brought me here, but this is home, and I plan on getting comfy here and staying for the long haul.